If you started writing your own game, it won't be long before you want to create a splash screen. If you think back some of your favourite games, things like Super Mario Land, or Prince of Persia, or Zelda Link's Awakening, they have some really iconic splash screens that have been done in what's kind of called pixel art, where someone's individually done those pixels. But also there's games like the Donkey Kong Land games that just have an image that looks like it's created from an original picture. Whatever approach you decide to take for your splash screen, today I'm going to show you how you can convert from an image into the files you need for GBDK to be actually able to display that in your game, and show you a small bit of code about how I would code a splash screen before moving into your main game. So let's get started. So before you can get started, you need to go and get your own image. So I've downloaded this Mario JPEG here. And then we're going to use a program called GIMP, which is a free image manipulation program. I'll put a link below that you can get for lots of platforms. But if you know Photoshop, or you've got another graphics package that can do this, you can do the same thing. But I just wanted to show how to do it in a package everyone should be able to get and should be able to get for free. So if you open your file in GIMP, here's mine. So you'll see the file here is actually 1080 by 1080 pixels. We need to resize that so that it fits on the Game Boy. So there are lots of different ways to do that. I'm going to do it by copy and pasting it in as a layer. So I'm going to do a new image, and I'm going to set it to the width and height of the Game Boy. So 160 pixels by 144 pixels. Then I'm going to copy all of Mario. So select all, edit, copy. Go back over to our new image and paste it in here as a new layer. Paste as new layer. So it's pasted it in, but obviously it's much bigger, so we've now got to resize this layer. So if we go to layers, scale layer, and we want it to pretty much be the same size as that. So it won't fit in 160 by 160, so we'll have to do it 144 by 144. That scales that down to that. And then we just need to have a white background, so we'll just fill the white background here. So I've selected the background, select the little paint brush tool, and fill it in. So we've now got Mario at the size we need, 160 pixels by 144 pixels, all in that one colour. Now we're going to actually have to convert it into black and white. So before I do that, I'm going to merge the layers down. So if I go to edit, go to layers, sorry, merge down, it would just get one layer now. So now we want to convert it into black and white. So we're going to colors, desaturate, just choose desaturate, then click OK. We've now got a black and white image. The Game Boy can only display 4 colors per sprite, so we need to get this down really to be 4 colors. Now you could do some really clever tricks here where you're using different colors in the different sprites. But for the simplicity of what we're doing today and what the tool I'm going to show you will do, you just need to have 4 colours for your whole image. So the way you do that is to go into Image, Mode, Indexed. Make sure you've got Generate Optimum Palette selected, and then change this to be 4, because you're basically going to ask it to convert what you've got there into only being 4 colours. Now, if I just do that, you'll see that it makes it like that, which is fine. But if you've got a more complicated image, you can use dithering. So if we go into there again, if you were to use this and do convert, it will try and use some of the colours combined together to create an image that looks like it's got more colours than it really has. But I think for our image, we're just actually going to have it with those 4 colours. So if I put that back again, turn off the dithering. Okay, we've got our 4 colour image. We're now going to save that as a PNG. So I'm going to do File, Export As. It should default to a PNG. And I'm going to go and put that in the directory that I want to actually generate my code from. So I'm going to put that in my splash screen code, and I'm going to call it mario.png. Let these be all the defaults and just click export. Okay, so we've now got an image in our folder called mario.png that if we look at is the right size and only using 4 colours. So we've done the first step. So the next step is actually to go and get a utility that can take that Mario PNG and convert it into the C files that we need to show in GameBoy Developer Kit. Now I had a good look around and I've used a few different tools that are out there, but I found a few problems with them. So some of them work really well, but they're very old and they don't run in newer versions of Windows. Some of them just seem to be overly complicated and you have to put lots of effort in to actually convert it. So I actually ended up writing my own one that hopefully is really straightforward for you guys to use, and I'm going to show you that today. So you can download it here on GitHub on the GameBoy PNG converter file. And it's got some information here which I'm going to kind of talk you through how to use it. But it's written in .NET Core, which means you should better run it on Windows and OS X and Linux. So to actually just go and download the file, if you go to this Releases tab here, look down the list and find the release that matches your platform. So if you're on Linux, OS X, Windows 64, which most of us probably will be on, or Windows x86 if you're on an older version of Windows. And basically just click on the zip file to download it. I've definitely tested this on Windows. I haven't been able to test it on OS X and Linux, so if you're able to test that for me and feedback to me, that'd be great. And there are instructions how to run it in Linux on the main page there, but I'm going to show you how to do it in Windows. So if we download this one, and you shouldn't need any other files to run it on any operating system. It comes with all the files it needs to run, which is why it's a little bit bigger, because it actually includes all the framework files it needs to run. But just download that and unzip it on your machine. So just extract the file wherever you want to. I'm going to put it into my downloads folder. So once you've downloaded it, just go to the directory that you created it in, and there'll be a folder here depending on your operating system. And you need to scroll down in Windows till you find this file, so the GameBoy PNG converter. Now you can run this from the command line if you know what you're doing with that, and if you're on OS X or Linux you'll need to do that. All the instructions for how to do that are in this README file at the GitHub page. But actually in Windows I've tried to make it really easy to do. So in Windows what you can do is just make sure you've got 2 windows. One window that has your image file in it, and one window that has the PNG converter. And you can actually just drag the image file onto the PNG converter.exe file. If it comes up like this, it's basically because you just downloaded it. Click on More Info and click Run. It will then run. If it works, it will just come up with this press any key to exit. If there are any issues with the file, that maybe you haven't converted it correctly or there are more than 4 colours, it will come up with some warnings and suggest how you fix those, but hopefully it will just run like that. You can press any key and it will exit. And then you'll notice over here where my Mario file was, I've now got 2 Mario C files, and these are the files we need in GameBoy Developer Kit. So let's actually open up Visual Studio Code and show you how to use those. Now hopefully you've been following my tutorials previously where we've actually shown how to load background images previously. And this is actually going to be exactly the same, but I'll show you how to do it and how maybe to make it work more like a splash screen. So we've got a basic Game Boy game file up and running. We've got includes for the main GBDK files and for the stdio, which we're going to use just to print something out to the screen in a second. And we now need to do the include for the 2 files that the PNG converter has created. So if we go and have a look at these, you can see they are unsigned chars. That's all the data, so that's all the tile data, the actual image, and then the map file which tells GBDK where to use each tile on the screen when it actually displays it. Now the utility has done a few things for us. It's made sure that we've actually got them as constants, and this is actually important. I've not been through this before. But if you mark the unsigned char array that we've got here as a constant, that makes sure that when it compiles, it will compile into the ROM, so the read-only memory. It won't be taking up the RAM, the access memory you use to run your code, and you don't want to fill the RAM with something that you don't need to. This just needs to be read out of the ROM. So if you put const, it will do that. It basically just tells the compiler you're not going to change this, so it doesn't need to put it into normal memory, it can just read it from the ROM. The other thing that the utility has done is it's made sure it's got rid of any files that are duplicates. So obviously in this image, lots of this is white space and would be exactly the same tile. So it's made sure it removed those. If you use an image that's so complicated that there are absolutely no duplicates, then you'll actually end up with more tiles than the Game Boy can load into memory, and the converter will actually warn you about this. So really, without lots of work, it's very difficult to load more than 256 tiles. So if you've got an image that's got completely unique background, you're going to have to change it, maybe resize the image a bit so that you end up with some white space like we do here, so that you can end up getting some duplicates so you can remove to make it smaller. And actually when you look at the file that's been generated, the header at the top here will tell you how many tiles have been generated. So there's actually only 114 tiles, lots of them are just used and repeated. So let's include those two files. So like we normally do, we're going to load those into the background memory and then actually display those on the screen. So set BKJ data is going to load from Mario data, and it's going to load starting at 0, 114 tiles, and that's how many there are in Mario data. So if you're generating your own image, that will obviously change, so you need to go and change that. And then we're going to set the background tiles starting at 0 and 0 and going the full screen width, so 20 tiles across and 18 tiles down, and that will be the whole thing. And again, if you're using a smaller image, you might change those images. So that's loading from Mario data into background memory, and that's loading in the actual tiles onto the screen, so it's the map between them. We've kind of been through that before. Now we just need to actually set backgrounds on and display it. And that's all you would actually need to get it up and running. But I'm going to show you, because this effectively is like a splash screen you might use on a game, I'm going to show you how you might do that, because you don't really want to do this inside your normal while game loop. So what you can actually do is you can display this, and then normally you would wait for the user to press a button, maybe the start button, maybe your image says press start to play. So what you can use is a function in GBDK called waitPad. So this is using the same kind of things we've used for the joypad before, but instead of being inside our game loop and constantly checking if the user is pressing a button, it's just going to pause the code until a user presses the button. So we want the start button, so we're going to do j_start. So the code will pause right here doing absolutely nothing until the user presses J start. So if we've got a while loop in our game, for example, it's not going to get to that until the user's press start. So it's a good way of doing your initial splash screens or intro screens and then jump into your game. You don't need to do it in part of this while loop. So I'm going to not use a while loop here, but I'm just going to show you can do something after it. So we're going to print to the screen. We're just going to say, just a really simple example so I don't actually have to build a game here. So now it's going to display the background. It's going to turn on background and display on. It's going to wait for the user to press the start button, and then it's just going to clear the background by printing start of my game to the screen. So if we actually make that now, and then load it in our Game Boy emulator, there we have our Mario image displayed on the screen really nicely, and if I press the start button, it will start my game. So hopefully that's just shown you how to actually process your image, how to run it through the utility that I've written, and then how to actually write some simple code to display a splash screen. As I said, watch out for using more than 4 colours, that will obviously fail. Using an image that's so big it doesn't fit on the Game Boy screen will cause you problems, and using an image so complicated that it's got more than 256 tiles, watch out for those. But my utility should warn you about that so that you should be able to avoid it. So that's everything for this week. Please let me know below how you get on, especially if you're trying it on OS X or on Linux, and we'll see you next time. Don't forget to subscribe to get the next episode.